All right, welcome back to the channel. So Shakur Stevenson gets called out by Oscar Valdez, but Bob Arum wants to block the fight. Surprise, surprise. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So I was looking at the news and the boxing news on Sunday, and I saw something that the WBC champion at 130 pounds, Oscar Valdez, had said about Shakur Stevenson. And in short, he said, I want the Shakur Stevenson fight because that's the fight that's going to take me to the next level. Shakur Stevenson, after he had beaten Jamel Herring, said that that's the fight that he wanted, was to fight Oscar Valdez. It would be a unification fight at 130 pounds. And it is the fight, if there's a fight at 130 pounds that is going to be made, is the absolute best fight that can be made at 130 pounds right now. Unfortunately for boxing fans, both of those fighters are represented by Top Rank, and Bob Arum is not in the mood to cash in one of his fighters yet, and is trying to set up a kind of mini tournament between that would include Shakur Stevenson fighting Miguel Berchelt and Oscar Valdez fighting Navrati. And then he says after that fight is over, then maybe Shakur Stevenson can fight Oscar Valdez, or the winner of those two fights can fight one another. Absolutely ridiculous. No need for it whatsoever. Get out of here. And I'm certainly hoping that both Oscar Valdez and Shakur Stevenson say no thank you to those fights. First of all, with Navrati, I'm going to say Navrati, probably killing his name, Navrati and Oscar Valdez. Having a WBO, I think he's the WBO champion, moving up from 126 to 130 pounds is not going to do anything for Oscar Valdez. It may be it might be an entertaining fight. However, it's not a fight that is going to do anything for Oscar Valdez's career. Navrati is not a big he's not a big name fighter. He's not somebody that people think are one of the best fighters in the world. None of that stuff. It's just not going to do any. I don't think it's going to do that much for Oscar Valdez. And I'm not saying it's a bad fight for Oscar Valdez himself if he doesn't fight Shakur Stevenson. But as far as like what really works for boxing fans, there's a beautiful fight to be made for Navrati down at 126 pounds. And that's a fight with him and Gary Russell Jr., or him having a unification fight at his own weight division. Having a back and forth fight with Navrati and Oscar Valdez it doesn't do anything for me as a fight fan. And I don't think it really does anything for Oscar Valdez other than a paycheck, in that scenario. Now, I'm not going to say that it's a mismatch or anything, or I know that he's going to bowl over Navrati. I don't know that. I'm not really that sold on Navrati. I'm not really that sold on Oscar Valdez. I think that they're both good fighters, both upper echelon fighters, but they're pretty much both food for the first for the first A-level fighter that they run into. Navrati, I think, would be food for Gary Russell Jr., but if he can beat Gary Russell Jr., then man, that brings a lot to his name. I think it would be better for Navrati. Now, as far as the Miguel Berchelt versus Shakur Stevenson fight, that's absolutely why. What does Shakur Stevenson get out of fighting Miguel Berchelt, who, by the way, is coming off of a knockout loss to Oscar Valdez? What difference does that? I mean, how does that push anything down the road? It doesn't. It's a fight. First of all, it's a one-sided fight. Nothing is going to happen in that fight except for Shakur Stevenson is going to knock out Miguel Berchelt, is going to knock out and beat up on Miguel Berchelt. Maybe, Bob Arum thinks because, maybe there's, some logic saying that Miguel Berchelt, because he won because he defended his WBC championship a few more times, is a better fight than Jamel Herring. I don't think he's a better fighter than Jamel Herring. And on top of it, he proved that he's not one of the best 130 pounder when he fought Oscar Valdez. If anything, Miguel Berchelt should be rematching Oscar Valdez because that was a good fight. Then honestly, man, Miguel Berchelt, if he didn't get knocked out, had a chance to win if I recall correctly. But it's just a waste of time. The fight that needs to take place in 130 pounds is Shakur Stevenson versus Oscar Valdez. And more than likely, the reason that the fight isn't going to happen, or Bob Arum and those guys, Bob Arum doesn't want that fight to happen, is because Bob Arum is a very, very bright guy. He's a very, very experienced guy with great matchmakers, and they know and can tell when somebody can win a fight. And I don't think that they are going to they don't want to put Oscar Valdez in a fight with Shakur Stevenson because they know full well what's going to happen to Oscar Valdez in a fight with Shakur Stevenson. Oscar Valdez is probably going to get broken down. If he doesn't get stopped, he's going to get broken down. He's going to get outboxed, and it's going to be a one-side. It's going to be a unanimous decision or, a 12-round stretch fight for Shakur Stevenson. And they are more than likely not going to want that. Or if they're going to get it, they're going to want to do it like they're suggesting. Let's carry it out a little bit further. Let's get a few more fights out of Oscar Valdez, get a fight out of Navrati, get a fight out of Berchelt, and, get an extra fight for Shakur Stevenson and waste a year doing it. And that's where I'm seeing that going. And honestly, man, more than likely, they could be trying to pull the same stuff that they pulled when at 140 pounds, when they had that, de facto mini tournament a few years back, where Regis Prograis, I can't remember who Regis Prograis fought, but Regis Prograis was fighting one guy. Jose Ramirez was fighting Amir Imam, and the winner of Prograis versus, it was in Julius Ndungo, because Julius Ndungo was signed to Top Rank. Jose Ramirez was signed to Top Rank. Jose Ramirez was fighting Amir Imam, and Regis Prograis was fighting Julius Ndungo for the belts that were vacated by Terrence Crawford. Once Jose Ramirez beats Amir Imam and Regis Prograis beats Julius Ndungo, all of a sudden Bob Arum backs out of it and says, all right, I think we're going to do something else. And Jose Ramirez winds up, not fighting Regis Prograis. Regis Prograis has to go off to the World Boxing Super Series and goes through all that stuff, and that's how Josh Taylor eventually winds up with the belt. So my thing is, if they don't make that fight right away with Oscar Valdez and Shakur Stevenson, there's not going to be any greater reason if in the next fight for those guys to make that fight either. And, maybe the logic is that it's not that big of money a fight and no need to throw Oscar Valdez away in the heap. But that said, it's up to the fighters. I think in this instance, if both of those fighters are insistent on fighting each other, then I think that fight can get made, and they might be able to override. They might be able to override Bob Arum on that and convince Bob Arum to make that fight if they're both refusing the other fight. And honestly, that would take a lot of bravery from Oscar Valdez. And if Oscar Valdez did that, I would have a lot more respect for Oscar Valdez. I was never really never a big fan of the skill set of Oscar Valdez. He takes too many punches for me. And I definitely don't like the fact that he got over on testing positive for that performance enhancing drug. But if he was to actually push that line and insist on a fight with Shakur Stevenson, hey man, my hat would go off to that dude. I don't see it happening though. And that's why, I'm just already of the mindset that Shakur Stevenson should go to 135 and try to force a fight with Vasily Lomachenko, try to get his hands on the belts at 135. But that's my take on the situation. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.